right, welcome back to Our Healer, Our Protector with Ryan Reichert and
Lisa Sander.
happy Tuesday, everybody. We are back.
Yes, we are. We are going to talk about communication with your partner, your wife, your husband, or whatever, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. We could go on and on. So
Are you going to read first?
I'm going to start off first. You ready, people? Healing hope. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so God can heal you. When a believing person prays, great things happen. James 5:16. When we are honest about our failures, we can pray for each other, offer compassion, and find encouragement. It is empowering to share the reality of our lives with each other and realize we aren't alone. When we are vulnerable about our shortcomings, we make space for others to also confess their sins and find freedom. What keeps you from confessing your sins? Are you afraid you're the only one who struggles with your particular issue? Are you worried about what others will think of you? Projecting a picture perfect version of your life won't cultivate intimacy or authenticity in your relationship. Ask God to show you someone in your life who is trustworthy. As you openly talk about the negative parts of your life, you'll find freedom and abundance of grace. After reading that, your partner is supposed to be your best friend. And with your best friend, you should be able to be open and talk freely about your feelings without feeling like that person's going to judge or attack you or find all your faults and not have an open discussion. That's where I believe couples fail. You forget that you're on the same side and that you love each other so much. So what causes fighting? Why are we fighting as women? Like, you have your best friend, you don't fight like that. So why are we fighting so hard with the person that should be our number one and our best friend and our love of our life?
Yeah, I mean, I took a couple notes of just, hard conversations, the dynamics of fears, insecurities, emotions, feelings, being vulnerable, the ability to create, that vulnerability allows intimacy and that intimacy allows trust. So the dynamic of almost having that hard conversation no matter what happens, but understanding, like prefacing outside of like our fears and our insecurities, those emotions and our feelings, like understanding like where we come from, like where we're broken, the dynamics. And I know like for men, it's one to be vulnerable is scary because we're supposed to protect, we're supposed to provide, we're supposed to be all tough and macho. And to take that step back and be vulnerable and maybe share some of our traumas in childhood or previous relationships, whatever that looks like. That dynamic is something when we get into relationships, we don't take the time to kind of lay some of that stuff out over time and space. You have all these, love feelings and emotions and so forth. And you're like, oh, I really like this girl. And she seems to like check all the boxes. And we don't ask the questions of like, what is this supposed to look like? What are the things of that checking all the boxes mean? And so actually understanding like, is this sounds terrible, but like, is this a facade or not? Because of the dynamics of, are we searching for a spouse or, just having a relationship per se, and understanding that there can be so much more to it that needs to go into it before that full understanding happens. And then if you're already in that relationship and haven't had any of these discussions, what does that look like? And I think, Lisa, like, let's lay that out because we've certainly gone through that over the last couple of years.
I think the most important thing that I think gets lost, Brian and I both believe in God, and like God really needs to come first and then your relationship. Like when you have people on the outside, family, friends, kids, if you put them first, there is going to be a disconnect in your relationship with your partner because it's between you two and nobody else. So you should be going to your partner as your best friend and talking about this stuff. And I know that when you do not do that, it causes problems because you aren't looking at you two, you're looking at the outside people telling what they think.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Certainly the many F's in the process of, as I'm writing, doodling here a bit, but you got faith, finances, family, and then I asterisk out like your intimacy or sex, like down the line, those areas that you're going to end up always having some type of conflict in it. If it's, I think for us, like with faith, the dynamic of understanding, like we both are Christians, but when I grew up, like there was the big C versus little C, like being Catholic, Catholic was the big C, Christian was the little C. And, marrying a Lutheran, that was like crossing the streams from the family perspective. And so there's many facets there when it comes to what does that look like for the family, that you believe you're going to create down the road and in all of it. And these are the things that you have to talk about. And I know many of you know this seems so simple, but it will become a massive valley to cross, I guess, when there are those differences, depending on where each person's at in those insecurities, those vulnerabilities, the fears, the things that we don't talk about when it comes to families and the dynamics of, your soon to be father-in-law, your soon to be mother-in-law, and vice versa. Like, what does that look like? What stress does that bring into like your relationship? And how are you going to protect each other from that as you go into it? Because you can't not control, who they are and you can't change who they are. So therefore, what does that look like in those dynamics of the relationships you believe you want to have, or you're visualizing, with the white little picket fence and the Christmases or the Thanksgivings and the Easters or whatever it looks like when you're sharing time together, like all of that is such like are different conversations that you will have over time and space, before you have children, when you have children, as your children get older. We're not saying fast forward all this stuff out, but these are things that if you do not talk about them, when they do come up down the road and you haven't covered, the time that you had this catastrophic thing as a child during Easter, that's the reason why you don't like Easter as a holiday and you won't go to church on Easter or whatever this looks like. But that's the dynamic of having the ability to really extrapolate all this when it comes to how you communicate with your best friend, just like Lisa said.
The other thing is fear, right? Like a lot of times when you want to communicate with your person that you love, some of it comes from fear because you don't want an argument to start. So if you could try something different and pray with each other, like hold each other's hand and say, Lord, I pray for both of us right now. I feel as though this is going to be a difficult conversation. Please be there for us so we can listen to each other, not get defensive, and let the person be their true self. And know that you're coming to a place of love, but you have to be fearless and tell them what your needs are. And we've talked about this too, and know each other's love language. That's so important to discuss. What is your love language? Because you could totally miss it in how to fill each other up if you don't discuss that. And it might, and your love language can change. It can, one year love language might be this, and then you've grown and it will change to this. I think the most important thing is being able to sit down and not argue and to have a constructive conversation.
I think the other side is at times, I don't know where I heard it. It was within the last week. Do you want to sleep on the couch and be right, or sleep in your bed and be wrong, or something to that effect? I heard somebody say it and I was like, man, I must have been trying to be right a lot because I did sleep on the couch quite a bit. So no, in that, like, it is a little humorous to that end, but it also, when I think about it, is how do we get through that, where you're talking about having a constructive conversation in such a way that it's not an argument. So there's no emotion in it, right? This dynamic where you're not screaming at each other because, goes back to, did we talk about HALT last time? I don't think, did we talk about it? It doesn't
I
matter
don't
if we
think
did,
so.
but HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So four emotions
Ooh.
that, or four feelings that create, massive emotions. And in that, so at any time, if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you do not have a conversation because you will be acting from a, I'm somebody that, like, I don't get hungry, and I don't really get tired, but I certainly can have moments of anger and loneliness. And I don't believe today it's truly this loneliness. It's the understanding of wanting to be alone because of how you've learned to process things and where do you best receive like your downloads in life, and it's in silence, and isn't being alone. But what does it look like for those who, going back to our fears and insecurities, where they really suffer from the hangries? I know plenty of people that I've met in my life that, fly off the handle because they're hungry. They just can't handle it at all. At least you get a little sick sometimes or whatever, right? When you get hungry.
I get
So,
nauseous.
yeah. So, I mean, those are all different things to understand because I know at first, like when that happened and you're like, I think I'm really like hungry. I need to eat because I don't feel well. I'm just like, well, what is that? Like, because it's something that I'd never, come across with anybody. And it's working through that, right? Going back to being a guy, wanting to solve problems, wanting to fix things. And we really need to, this is a science project here. This is the dynamic of, love languages, fixing, problems as the masculine versus the nurturing as the feminine.
The other thing is like really communicating. Men cannot read our minds, women. Like you literally have to lay out what your needs are.
We had a little bit of some technical difficulties, and some of us might be wearing different clothes because we lost internet while we were recording the episode, and we're back. So the first half, we set everything up. This part of it now, we're going to transition into specifically, I think, how to have that repair conversation and see where we go.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about this. How to have a repair conversation after you've hurt each other. Ryan, do you care if I go into this a little bit?
Let's go.
A relationship can survive conflict. What it cannot survive is the absence of repair. Most couples apologize, move on, pretend everything is fine, and then wonder why that same fight returns again and again because nothing actually healed. The wound stayed open. Ryan, what are ways that we can repair that? When to have the conversation?
Yeah, we've talked about in this past, and I think everybody's different. I know we've kind of crowdsourced this a little bit actually since we came up with, like kind of the here and now for, we talked about HALT and the hungry, angry, lonely, tired part of it. And what does that look like to halt or pause and want to work through, these healing moments. And like for you and me, we're kind of like trying to get it, before the sun goes down, just because we only have today, the way we look at it. Some others have talked about it, like kind of give it 24 hours and, really let it marinate. Some people like to, go to somebody else and, get their piece of it. I'm certainly not specifically that way in where I need to crowdsource where I'm coming from if I'm broken. But from that side of the street, I really look at it always as like the truth. And as long as the truth is being conveyed from each party, there's not normally a dynamic of like jealousy or resentment. It's just allowing you to discuss things from your point of view. And basically though, like when we look into it, for those out there that want like the 24 hours, is it gives you time to calm down because maybe you were hungry, angry, lonely, tired. It still matters. It's still relatively fresh, and you're not letting it go on for a long enough And now the dynamic is, are you willing to have the conversation with your partner and try to work through that? The other side, though, is you do want to come to some form of resolution so it doesn't come back up. And then you have, well, remember when, and you didn't want to talk
Hmm.
about it. You didn't want to confront it. You didn't want to, allow that scar tissue to come into play, and then things don't work for you. It's just like when you have an injury, physical injury, if you don't go to physical therapy, don't work through that, like you have a lot of scar tissue. And then with that, there's pain, and you can kind of come back to it. And there's some examples we kind of, like I said, in the crowdsourcing we looked up, it was the dynamic of, not allowing it to repeat ourselves in it. So, you had a fight about money, things that got rough when we talked about your family. All of these are things that when we talk about the dynamics of the finances, family, faith, and then, the intimacy side of things are the ones that come up and have a tendency to bring in resentment, bring things back up, cast the, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father. And when we look at ourselves, we look at it from, we're not them. We might have similar things that we take on from what we learned from them and so forth. But what is that dynamic? And it doesn't do any good to, shame somebody through that, the shame blanket with the guilt we might have had if we made a wrong or, did something to hurt someone we love, is trying now just to talk through it. And where
Isn't
is
it?
that truth coming?
Yeah. It's funny that you say like the shaming, like your mother or father. Do we ever bless our mother and father and be like, oh my gosh, you just did something that your mother or father did that is so loving? When did we get to this part of shaming them about our mother and father? Where's like, oh my gosh, you have a loving heart like your mom. Think about that. Another thing is examples like, I should not have raised my voice. You need to own your part. So like if Ryan and if we had a discussion, I should have not raised my voice. I'm sorry I dismissed your feelings. I brought up old issues and did not belong here. People, when you do not finish a conversation and it repeats itself over and over, it's because the truth did not come out. The healing did not come out. And most likely, your unhealed parts are from what you were taught growing up. I grew up in a yelling home. To get across to anybody, there was yelling going on. So that's all I know. And you need to talk about it now. I don't give people 24 hours. I don't even want to give them 5 minutes. I didn't grow up like that. You just shout it out, go blah. And then you're like, oh, I'm sorry. We're all good. Let's have supper together. Let's sit, want to watch a movie. Like life goes on. And that's how I grew up. So my friends that know me closely, and the people in my life, that's what you do. You shout, scream, but that's not making it right. Who can respond to yelling and screaming? It just pisses you off. It's heated.
Well, I think basically, my reflection on all of that is wherever we found ourselves as a child, because that's what children do, right? You don't know until you see or you were taught, trained, and that's the level that you communicate at when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And so basically what we're trying to get after here though is like, how did that make you feel? Where do you believe you were affected through all of this? And those are the ones where you have the dialogue back and forth without it. So I think in it, at this point, like Lisa, you and I are able to have, conversations.
Oh, yeah.
There is no yelling and so forth, but the dynamic, I get it. Like if you haven't been through these situations yet and you haven't learned from how you interacted previously, utilizing that side of it where you just reacted and the volume kept going up, 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 because you think they're going to hear you and they'll listen as the volume goes up. But that's not the case because they're afraid. And why would you tell the truth when you're in a state of fear? Because you believe just more pain and suffering is going to come into
Or,
things.
yeah, it just keeps like you're already in that tense situation. And then to be like, oh, now can you imagine if I tell my truth, what this is going to turn into? Scared of rejection, scared of owning your stuff even more. How does that how does that set anyone up to say, I'm sorry? You're going to get defensive. And when I think back about my past relationship, both grew up in a yelling home. That's all we knew how. Yell, get your point across, don't own what your part was. And then my deflection is like always, I'm sorry, like trying to make sure everyone's calm and being a people pleaser or not speaking up make the waves either.
And
It's
that's
so
where,
important to communicate.
yeah, well, I think that is where the understanding of being honest is so important, to realize that being specific and then also being realistic and understanding who you're communicating with. Those are the dynamics of it. Like you can be having conversations with people and everything's just
Oh, yeah.
over their head. And you have to realize that, you're not meant to engage. Like I always say, if the enemy doesn't see you, like, right, the enemy's not shooting at you, like you don't need to engage the enemy. The rules of engagement dynamic are the same way when it comes to communicating at times. And some people might be confused by this. Is I guess what I'm trying to say is you do not need to have certain conversations with certain people. Like with your partner, I believe, yes, you should be conversing all the time, but
Oh,
there's
yeah.
family and friends that you might want to be right because you just can only see it the way you see it. And from their perspective of things, like you're the polar opposite. So just understand too, like we're talking about multiple different layers here when you're communicating with your partner versus communicating with family versus communicating with friends. But most importantly, communication you have with your partner is trying to get to that specific dynamic, where you're at, how did it make you feel? What are we going to do to support each other as we continue our journey together, solve those issues that do come up because there's something with finances that are happening, there's something with family that is happening, there's something with your faith that's happening. And then with all those three
It's
things,
the three F's.
yeah,
If you don't take care of the three F's, those are all hard conversations. And if you can't be on the same page and see from each other's side, you're going to have problems. So if anyone's listening out here and you're thinking about getting married to someone, the three F's are important. Where are you? Faith, family, finances, and it needs to be between you two and not outside sources. It's God and then you two. And you got to support each other.
yeah. No, I think that's fantastic exclamation point to this one, even though that we know there's technical difficulties that can happen, didn't cause us to, lose our minds or anything. We just slept on it. The internet worked again this morning and we changed clothes, took a shower, and here we are. So love you all. Super excited. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share it for this episode and head on over to ourhealerourprotector.com and see what we got coming next.
Yeah. And Ryan, good luck on Friday. You're doing your TED Talk. So proud of you. Can't wait to be there to cheer you on. And I wish whatever you guys have out there, the blessings that you need, ask God, ask big. When you're getting closer to be doing what you're doing, the devil's going to come at you. He's going to try to come all sides. And when you feel that someone's trying to interfere or the devil's coming for you, that means you're getting closer to something that you're supposed to be doing. Life can be painful. And in that pain, God shows us the light. Be the light, stay away from the enemy. And when you see it, say, yep, I'm getting closer to what I'm supposed to be doing. So Jesus loves all of you. And I pray for everyone's safety and love and freedom and all that goes with it. Bye.
Bye.